It's about to get wild, wacky, and weird on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Henry, you know why?
Why?
Because it is the off-season of all off-seasons.
Oh, it is.
It's been the off-season technically for 6 months now with the Broncos, since they're always done at the beginning of January.
Hey,
so
only for the last 7 years.
Okay, you're right. Only in the time that DNVR has been around, for the most part. Yeah. Actually, yes.
Even BSN.
Yep. Definitely
BSN
all
got
of DNVR.
Yep.
BSN got one.
Yep.
About 6 months into the company's inception.
Yep.
The Broncos were good, and since there, it's been downhill. This year might be different, though, and we're going to talk about that. But today is really the first week of the real off season. Broncos are not allowed to be in the building for the next 6 weeks. Sean Payton's not in the building this week or this weekend, this past weekend, and the entire organization really takes a big step back in these 6 weeks. And when it's the off season, Henry, things get wild and fun on this podcast. So welcome into the DNVR Broncos Podcast off-season edition. I'm Zac Stevens, joined by my guy, Henry Chisholm. Ryan isn't feeling well today, so we hope that he's feeling better and can be on with us later this week. So we're thinking about you, Ryan. And
he's
Henry?
lucky he showed up Friday.
Oh, or else people would be like,
That'd
man,
be a
this
full
guy
week.
is twerking on his own.
Exactly. That would be a full week.
Or are we lucky that he showed up on Friday? Were we lucky to be graced in his presence?
I think he's pretty lucky he showed up on Friday.
And hopefully he's back tomorrow. But Henry, we've got Broncos on our mind 365 days a year.
We do. I got bored last night. I'm in a weird place now that the Nuggets are done. Or just like, I don't know what to do with
mentally?
myself. Yeah, like mostly I've just been like catching up on sleep and drinking a bunch of water and stuff and recovering from last week.
Yeah, literally, you have water on the set.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important.
So I have to ask, since you mentioned water, how much did you drink this weekend? Alcohol?
None. I mean, none since the parade.
So you stay true to your word.
Bro, I am uninterested.
Impressive, Henry.
I am uninterested in alcohol for the foreseeable future. Like, I had my fill. I'll kind of ease back around. Maybe like some Buffs game days. You know, maybe go to a Rockies game, have a beer or two.
Buffs game days. What sport are we talking about?
Football.
Oh, so you're way out in the future.
I'm not a big drinker unless I'm watching sports.
Yeah, it was just
and
funny.
I've watched a lot of sports recently.
It was funny on Friday when you're like, I'm not a big drinker, yet I took my first drink of the day yesterday at 5:15 in the morning. I just couldn't see those two things going together.
It was a celebration. Like, I just didn't have a choice.
I love it.
But I have a choice now. But yeah, point is, a lot of water, going to the gym a lot. But also, I was like, you know what? I'm going to play with the Broncos on Madden and just see what happens. It was so fun.
It was what?
It was fun. Like, I had like the new rosters and stuff. Like, I was going to games saying like, okay, like which 3 receivers am I getting on the field? Like, I'll be able to work a couple in, but like, sorry KJ, sorry Marvin, I'm going with the big 3. So it was fun. It's a good team.
So Marvin kind of got the boot.
Marvin did, yeah. Even KJ showed up and like made a couple plays.
Wow.
But again, like 4 receivers. Oh, look, there's KJ wide open.
Yep.
Yeah.
How's McGlinchey?
Oh, McGlinchey is good. He got called for a pretty crucial holding on an 8-yard run from Javonte. But outside of that.
Oh, boy. So Javonte's back.
Javonte is pretty sick also.
You know what? That should just be we should just run through your Madden Broncos team today. Do you think people would like that?
We should just bring the Xbox and we can just play Madden.
Well, we got to wait till Ryan's back.
And be like, I wonder what happens if we play JL Skinner at linebacker. It's like, we can plug JL in. And
wouldn't that not be allowed in our Madden league?
That we're not going based on our Madden league. We have it's Madden's fault. It's not our league's rules. But positions are kind of gone in the NFL now. Like receivers line up as running backs line up outside, safeties line up at linebacker. Like the fact that you should be able to like click on my linebacker and like I want a sub and pick anybody.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It'd be fun.
And why is that different? Why can't you? Why doesn't it give you that big of an advantage in the NFL now?
That's a good question.
Why aren't safeties just the new linebackers?
Sometimes they are. I mean,
sometimes.
Occasionally just have like the full-on position switch, like Mark Barron, who's like he's a safety, but also he doesn't really run real well, so he can be like a kind of good cover linebacker. So you have guys who make the full switch.
Mark Barron, former Bronco, shout out.
Yeah, shout out. We should do a pod on him. We'll have plenty of time this summer.
I think he played 3 snaps in training camp, and that was it for the Broncos.
Yep.
And then he got hurt and, got a couple $1 million on his way here.
Yep. That would have been nice if he had panned out. But, so you have some of that, but you also just have positionless players are the starting point where it's like Isaiah Simmons, they're moving from linebacker to safety. It's like, well, maybe you should have done that sooner or whatever, but you could kind of fit him in it either. But then there's also you just call it the dime. Or it's like you want Caden Stearns in at linebacker. Yeah. It's like, this is just a dime package then. And it technically is, but you don't really change a lot, And
you're right that sometimes it does just happen where there's straight up position changes and a safety is now the new starting linebacker. But what's crazy is that seems like kind of the way of the new NFL. Yet the Broncos have like the most prototypical inside linebackers when you think of inside linebackers. Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton. And some people might think that's like a negative thing to say, like, they're just too prototype right now for being that position when you are going into such a pass-happy league. But these guys are getting $5 and $6 million a year. The Broncos really want them, and we both think that they're very good linebackers. So it's just kind of fascinating. But you're right. It's because both of those guys aren't going to be on the field for 95% of the snaps. They're going to be rotating. You're going to have a J.L. Skinner on the field. You're going to have Kareem Jackson, Caden Stearns, and Justin Simmons on the field at the same time in order to combat that. Yeah,
and you could even, you could go nickel, but throw in like Frank Clark for one of them, have 5 guys down on the line if you want, and still think like, we're big and heavy enough to stop the run. But that's the big thing is if you have those two, then you just feel really good about your run defense.
Yeah,
and you might not always need it, but when you do need it, it's going to be just fine at the worst. You would hope.
Well, we can't say the word Madden anymore because right when you said that, we got our first dislike on YouTube. So people don't want the Madden pod. Okay, we hear you. But hit us with a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. Happy Juneteenth. Hopefully all of you are off watching us at home. Maybe you're hitting the golf course soon, the swimming pool. Henry, you hitting the golf course after this?
No, I'm doing the Buffs pod after this.
Oh, so you're working extra.
Yeah, because RK's sick.
That's true.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting because I covered the Buffs like 2 years ago, and there's I know about 3 players on the team. I know Shedeur Sanders, I know Travis Hunter.
Yep.
And they've got the Cormani McLean. I know those 3.
And you only know those 3 because they're big time names, not because they were actually here when you covered them.
No, there's just nobody left. And so I come out and it's like, Owen Carey. He was this sick recruit out of California, crazy mobile linebacker. It's like, he left last week.
Oh, man.
Why did he leave? He was awesome.
Was he actually good? Or was he 2020 Buffs good?
I mean, he was their top recruit in that class, I think.
But I mean, how does that compare to Dion's classes?
We'll see.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you're going to...
Oh, little Debbie Downer on the Buffs pod today?
I don't know if it makes me a Debbie Downer that I took the Buffs over 3.5 wins.
Wow.
I took the over, but the line is that low.
That?
Yeah. It moved up to that.
That is what... Being around this company.
Exactly.
And all the optimism, which I totally get, but man, I would have thought it was 6.5 or 7.5.
Yeah. And that's where I was like, I'll take the over on that.
Yeah.
4.5 though, I don't know. 5.5, that seems like a bad bet.
And I think you're sending a message to people on the Buffs podcast with your shirt right now.
Go Grizz.
You're reminding them what a national championship t-shirt looks like?
Yeah, and also what the team that sold more season tickets than the Buffs last year looked like.
Wow, is it not the case anymore though?
I would guess not this year.
Probably
not this year.
Probably not. Actually, I didn't put that together. That's supposed to be a grizzly bear on his shirt. I thought that was I thought it was a squirrel.
Damn, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
the old 90s stuff was good.
I mean, it is a cool shirt, but I just feel like they need to make the bear or bear, right?
Yeah.
Look more like a bear than a squirrel.
He looks like a cocaine bear.
Oh,
the eyes. He's spitting and stuff.
That was the OG cocaine bear?
I think so.
Wow. Who knew Montana was so ahead of the times?
Yeah. Usually, they don't have much cocaine up there. I guess I moved away when I was 20, so I would have been.
They probably have crazier stuff.
Yeah.
Or is it just a lot of beer?
Whole lot of beer.
Yep.
Whole lot of beer.
A lot of Breckenridge beer?
Actually, there's a meth problem. I'm not sure. Maybe that's gotten better.
See,
but never mind.
That would be a lot more intense.
That is more intense.
So you mentioned
would be the good thing.
You mentioned a couple of names. You said Kareem Jackson. You said Frank Clark. Those are some guys that 2 months ago, a month ago, but 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, we're not on this team.
Yep.
And shortly after the Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett, we kind of put our expectations out there. What's it going to be if they go and get Sean Payton? What's it going to be if they go a different route? And we kind of broke those down for about a month until they hired Sean Payton. Then we had our new expectations. Then the Broncos went out and spent $250 million in free agency. So our expectations changed maybe a little bit then. And then we saw what Sean Payton was able to do or not do, what we're able to say or not say during mandatory minicamp and the OTAs this offseason when the Broncos actually practiced. And maybe our expectations changed, and they've also added some players there. So now that the entire offseason is over, Sean and George Payton have said that they're still going to be looking to add players. But for the most part, this is probably the team that it's going to be going into training camp, going into week 1. So, Henry, how have your expectations changed about this team since the start of the offseason program? So, about the start of April.
Yeah, that's tough because, like, when I just go through and do all the math on the team, I come out at, like, yeah, they should win, like, 10 games. It's like Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton, like, you're up, like, 3 wins better?
Wait, from
Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton. Like, you just plug Sean Payton into that team last year. So you get him to 7? Does he get him to 8?
Yeah, 3 wins would be 8 if we're doing math on the show.
And that's where, like, I don't know. I started by thinking 2, and I was like, Sean Payton is not only 2 wins better than Nathaniel Hackett. He just isn't. He is so much better than that. And you go from there to, you just upgrade the offensive line. You factor in the injuries last year. You factor in So you go through all that and say, like, doesn't that mean they're already kind of at like 9 or 10 wins? Which I don't believe, but you do the math, and that's what it would make you think is like they picked up 5 wins this offseason. It was a great offseason. Then you get to camp, and Javonte's back. So say you expected him back mid-season, and he was going to kind of be himself. Now I expect him to be back and kind of himself at the start of this season, and I expect him to get better throughout the season. So I think that's worth another win. Like,
forgot about Javonte's addition that we found out during the offseason.
And that's the big one to me. Because outside, like Kareem, good to have him. If there's injuries, it'll be really, really great to have him. But if everybody's healthy, it's like, yeah, there's 10 snaps a game where you feel a little bit better than you would have. Frank Clark, if he's playoff Frank Clark, then he's picking up 11, 12 sacks this season. That's great. If he's not, and he never has been in the regular season, then I don't know that really changes all that much.
And kind of maybe offsets Baron Browning's injury.
Yeah,
so maybe
exactly.
It's kind of a wash.
Exactly.
By the addition and the subtraction there.
Yep. So I come out with like maybe 1 win for Javonte better.
Okay. So where are you at?
Again, I did all the math, and it's like, well, 2 for Peyton, another 1 for the injuries that you had happened last year won't happen this year, or not to that extent you would hope. The upgraded offensive line is another win. So there's 4, so you're at 9. You add this one in, and it's 10. But then I say I expect 10 wins from the Broncos, and then I think like, no, let's knock that down to 8.
Well, see, and Henry, when you break it down like that, I think you're really on to something, and I kind of have similar math, too, that I want to go through and just see if it does add up. But one of the things the Broncos clearly did this offseason was they called our friends over at Backus and Schenker because they had a total nightmare accident on their hands after last year. They smashed the 2s, 2-2-2, 2-2-2-2 after just a terrible accident they were in, and they got major help because the money was flowing for the Broncos this offseason, and that could be the case with Backus and Schenker, too. We talked about how the Broncos spent $250 million this offseason. It's a ton of money. Backus and Schenker has won their clients over $1 billion. You could almost buy a football team with that money. You could almost buy Michael Jordan's share of the Hornets with that money. If you are in an accident, whether it's rideshare, whether it's auto, whether a bus, bicycle, whatever the injury is in that accident, call our friends over at Backus and Schenker at 222-2222. They are going to help you through this process. It set you up with a free consultation. They set you up with a free, it's free when you're going through it. You only pay once they win you money, or check them out at coloradolaw.net. That's 222-2222 to get in touch with our friends over at Backus and Schenker on the Zackus and Hanker podcast.
Yes. And also play some kickball like we do. because for $20 a month or $200 per year, you can get unlimited pickups, drop-ins, and tournaments from Volo Sports. They have different sports all over the city, and even outside the city, like all over the metro area. So if you want to play in a darts league, or you want to play kickball, like I said, or soccer, basketball, or flag football, or even the weird ones, like I'm sure there's like a mini golf league or something like that, which would be a lot of fun. Check out Volo. There's also a beta version of that monthly subscription, which is only $10 a month for 3 months. So maybe check that out. And like I said, gets you into unlimited pickups, drop-ins, and tournaments, all the different sports all across the city. So when you do that, though, use the code DNVR10 and you'll get $10 off at www.volosports.com/Denver. It's volosports.com/Denver. DNVR 10 for $10 off.
I was over at Illegal Pete's yesterday, and just in the corner, there was Volo bags, cornholes. I just said Volo across it, and I'm like, man, on the patio at Illegal Pete's with a nice marg and Volo.
Yeah.
Man, playing some cornhole, that sounds amazing.
That does.
And Henry, I'm kind of along those same lines when talking about expectations. I think the jump from Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson to Sean Payton, and what I think Sean Payton is going to be able to do for Russell Wilson, kind of at a minimum of the bump he's going to give him. 10 spots better than last year at kind of a minimum, like a bottom 5 quarterback to an average quarterback, kind of at least maybe like the 18th best quarterback in the NFL, so just below average. And then with Sean Payton's game management, what he's going to be able to do for the offense, that's at least 3 wins right there.
Yeah.
Right? Like at least, especially with all the end of game stuff.
You would think. There's also a good one from Jose, except for kicker. They did get worse at kicker. I'll take a win away for that.
See, you've been wanting to find ways to take wins away, and that actually is a legitimate one.
I think there will be a game where you look back and say, oh, I wish you had Brandon McManus. And who knows, maybe there are plenty of other times during the season you would have been frustrated, but I do think they downgrade. So that's...
Man,
I'm back at 9, and I feel a lot better.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Jose. Especially, you just wish that Sean Payton would have come out and given Elliott Fry, like, man, we feel like we got the diamond in the rough. He's our guy. But when you ask about him and he says, yeah, just like every position we're looking to bring guys in, you're like, damn, they don't really trust that he's the kicker. And if you're in kicker purgatory, that could absolutely cost you. Just ask the Chargers. I mean, how many games did they lose a couple of years ago because they were just rotating in kickers, and kickers were missing 4 kicks a game and then missing game winners from 30 yards out and stuff. So that is a really good one to keep in mind there, Jose. So I, just like you, 3 games for the coaching boost. Then,
was yours just offensive coaching?
Yes.
Because then there's the defense too, which I think is interesting.
You want to take a win away, or would you give a win to them?
I think it's about the same.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be surprised if you want to take a win away, which I could kind of get behind.
But here's the thing is, at the end of the season last year, everyone thought the Broncos defense was this top 5 defense from the beginning of the season till the end of the season. And they were from the beginning of the season till week 12. And then they were a bad defense in terms of points per game allowed. And obviously the offense didn't help with that, but they were bad. And so they averaged to be like the 14th, 13th best scoring defense, 14th best scoring defense. I kind of think that's where the Broncos are going to be this year too. So I think in terms of the net result at the end of the season, I think Broncos are going to be very similar. So I'm actually not willing to take a win away.
Special teams?
That is one where you could give them a win, especially
maybe
if this special teams is anything close to what Mike Westhoff thinks it's going to be.
I know.
They're going to go from worst to first this year.
Yeah, I mean, Football Outsiders had him at they dropped 15 points because of special teams last year.
And with how many close games they were in,
exactly,
that's at least a game.
And then you say, like, what if they go not just from like bad to average, but bad to good?
Right.
Then that's 30 points.
Yeah,
which is a lot. Now,
2 wins.
Does that? I think it does balance out the kicker swap. I think pretty easily.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Man, this is just crazy how the further we get away from last year, the more rosy of glasses you're able to have looking at this team. And of course, the unknown is there. And so when there's unknown, you typically get the benefit of the doubt, especially when you're talking about a team in this market and you're talking about a team that we cover and you're close to.
And it's Sean Payton, who also gets the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. And that's why. So then I also give a a game for what they did in free agency. They did lose Draymond Jones, but I think it was a 1-for-1 replacement with Zach Allen and what they did with the offensive line. I do think that that's worth a game.
Yep.
It should be worth a game. If $250 million spending spree isn't worth a game, you spend more in free agency than any other team, then you really effed up free agency if that's not worth a game.
What about Stidham over Rippon? Like, you assume it's 2 games. Does he get you one more win than Rippon would have?
If he's in for 2 games?
Yeah.
No. I think he goes 1-1. And isn't that what Brett did last year? Or no, Brett's 1-1 in his career starting games.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, so I think
It's
at the end of
probably
the
the
day,
same.
it's probably the same. Maybe his stats are a little better, and he does perform a little better, but I don't think he's lifting you to like a
He's not worth a win.
I don't think so.
No.
Especially at that backup spot. So 1 win there, and then this offseason, just seeing the coaching again, Javonte Williams boost, that's worth at least another win. Now we're at 10 wins.
Yep.
And that's kind of even... You could make a case that Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, what he's going to do for Russ is going to be worth even more than 3 wins. So you could really build the case that this team could be 11, 12 wins. I'm not going to go that far at all.
No.
But 10 wins isn't crazy to say, but where the floor has to be, Henry, the floor has to be 7 wins for this team. And there's something to back that up. And that is Sean Payton has never had worse than a 7-9 record. Now, obviously, 7 wins this year would be 7-10 record, but he's been 7-9. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. 4 times in 15 years he was 7-9. That's the worst he's ever been. He was 8-8 another year, and then he's had a winning record every other year outside of that. That's the floor for this team. If they are any worse than that, then this is just another disaster for the Broncos.
That's the thing, though, is they've gone below the floor in like 6 of the last 7 seasons, probably.
And it's been a disaster.
It has
when
been.
they've gone below the floor.
But when
and
the trend
people have
is
been fired.
When the trend is it is always the worst case scenario. It's tough to say our worst case scenario is as bad as it should be, you know?
So I just don't think that they're going to get below 7 wins this year.
I don't think so either.
And if
but
they
I
do, it's a
also
total
thought they
disaster.
were going to be going to the playoffs last year. And I thought whatever the year before and before that and before that, our worst case scenario has never been as bad as what actually happened.
Okay, I guess worst case scenario and floor is just a tiny bit different in my mind. I think like the realistic floor is 7 wins, just because Sean Payton, he's been given Drew Brees, but he's also been given 4 different quarterbacks. When they had 4 different quarterbacks play in Sean Payton's last year after Drew Brees retired, they went 9-8. And they got okay production from the quarterbacks. You have Russell Wilson. That should be better than Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Ian Book, and who was the other quarterback? Oh, Trevor Siemian.
Yeah.
Those are the 4 quarterbacks. Russell Wilson should be a little bit better than that, and he was able to go 9-8 with that team. Now, to be fair, that was the NFC South, which did have the Bucs with Tom then, but no one else really.
And I mean, what about the other? What if something bad happens? I mean, we're gonna touch wood through all this, but the Broncos have had the most ACL tears in the NFL the last 5 years.
But I've been told the injuries can't be worse than last year.
I think they could be on the defense. I think they could be.
I mean, Randy Gregory got hurt last year. Baron Browning got hurt last year.
Yeah.
Wasn't DJ Jones out a couple of games?
A couple. But with Randy, how surprised are we going to be if that happens again?
You have to plan for it.
You're
so
like negative.
not at all.
You're surprised if it doesn't happen
100%.
again. And you go through and it's like, okay, Justin Simmons missed a few games.
Yep, which has never happened before.
Yep. Darby missed a bunch of games, but he also, I mean, how big of a difference was it really between him and Damari Mathis, you know?
Outside of that first game, not much.
Exactly. And so I don't think you lost much there.
Ooh, did that lose him a game, though? If Darby's in that Chargers game. Ooh. And I'm
maybe,
super high on Damari Mathis,
yeah,
but like that was a brutal game.
There's a chance, yeah. You didn't have Josie the first couple weeks. You didn't have Jonas the entire season, but that's also turns out it was worth it because you found out Alex Singleton is good.
Yeah, it's true. You didn't have Javonte.
But like just defense.
Oh,
so like
just defense. You're right.
Do you think how crazy would it be to get worse injury luck than that this year?
I mean,
it's not that crazy.
No, it's not that crazy. It would be a bad break, though.
It'd be a bad break.
I don't think it's going to be that bad. And then obviously on the offensive side.
offensive side is where it was really bad.
Really shouldn't be.
Because you
bad.
lost Javonte and didn't have a replacement. You lost Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler.
And you shouldn't have the fumbles from Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be cutting Samaje Perine midway through the season because of similar issues that Javonte or that Melvin had.
Didn't have Bowles all year. Quinn missed a couple of games. Yeah, I mean, they definitely...
Dalton even was hurt. He's never been hurt.
Lloyd got hurt. Turned out Graham Glasgow is a little bit better. So, again, that's another one where it's like, yeah, maybe
But now
not
Graham's
the worst.
gone.
Yeah, so you wonder... I wonder how... I hope the Broncos are healthy this year. I think there's a chance that all of a sudden... defensive star... we just lose him for the whole second half of the season, you know?
And you probably do have to count on that. Just like every team should count on losing one key player probably on each side of the ball for a significant amount of the season. But then where you come into it is if you're already planning on losing Randy Gregory for a significant part of the season, then you're like, now we have to count on another star being gone for a significant part. But something that we haven't talked about yet is the Broncos made a massive investment in their strength and conditioning staff, in their what other position did they hire? It was like a brand new position to oversee everything.
VP of, was it just human performance, health and human?
Maybe. Essentially, he's overlooking everything. They paid him big time money to come over from, was it LSU?
Yep.
It was a big SEC team. And they paid him big time money. So they have just dumped resources into this. And he's had a really good track record where he's been in terms of injuries. So just as big of a boost as the Broncos got from the coaching staff, going from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton, they might have got just as big of a boost on the injury side too.
You hope so. You really hope so. It's VP of Player Health and Performance.
VP of Player Health and Performance. That's kind of what Sean Payton was talking about last week when he was talking about how I can just manipulate the titles in order to make a job a little sexier. VP of Player Health and Performance.
Yeah. Well, because he lost him when he was with the Saints. It's like, wow, he's doing great stuff. Then LSU just said, here, you just take over this whole like side of the athletics department.
Yeah.
And you just can't compete with that unless you say, you're now a vice president here
of the Denver Broncos.
Exactly. That's a pretty
$5 billion organization.
Yeah, so he gets a decent payday. But he'll do everything. Like that's food and shakes and supplements and the lifts and the stretches and all those different things, recovery even. So hopefully that solves all the problems.
Or cuts it in half.
Oh, that would be incredible. I mean, that would be incredible.
And, I mean, you look typically, the teams that win the Super Bowl are they're obviously very talented, good coaching, probably a good quarterback, but they're also one of the least injured teams, the Broncos in 2015. Outside of Peyton Manning, which is kind of crazy to say, outside of Peyton Manning, incredibly healthy. The Chiefs last year, they have the best coach in the NFL, the best quarterback in the NFL. They also had the fewest number of injuries. I think near the end of the season, they had like $250,000 of cap space on IR. It was like mind blowing. Where the Broncos were at like 125 million or something crazy.
Led the NFL. But I mean, then Super Bowl 48, no Vaughn, no Chris Harris. Who I can't remember.
They didn't have Derek Wolfe. They didn't have Chris Harris. They didn't have Vaughn. They didn't. Who was their starting inside linebacker that game? It was wild who it was because of. Because of injuries.
I don't know.
The offensive line, Ryan Clady, that was actually his last year with the Broncos. He was not healthy either. I mean, you could just go down the list of guys. The offensive line, they had some injuries as well. Of course, that's the famous snap from Manny Ramirez.
We can move along, I guess.
We can move on. So, Henry, what happens if they don't get to 7 wins?
I'll be sad.
You'll be sad. Great analysis.
That would be upsetting. That would be upsetting again if they don't get to 7. I mean, because where do you even go? You know you're tearing everything down, which means you're getting rid of Russell, and you can't really. I mean, it's not like you're replacing players. It's not like you're building any talent around you for the next 2 years while you pay that off. Moving on from Randy Gregory, you might move on from Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton. I guess Javonte still has another year on his. Like you're tearing everything down. You're going to suck for at least a year or two, and that would just be a really dark place to be.
That's just 2 things. When you said they're going to tear it down, I thought, what tearing down is there? They just hired Sean Payton. They're not going to tear that down. There's a lot of players they can move on from. And something else, another major move would be George Payton. I'd have to imagine that he would be gone. So they would tear everything around Sean Payton down. But Sean Payton isn't the rebuild type. So that's why, yes, I do think they're moving on from Russell Wilson. But then are they trading 3 first-round picks in order to get to the 3rd pick in the draft to pick the 3rd best quarterback in the draft? Something like that, where it's, yes, they are making massive changes, but it's and then they make a huge move after tearing things down in order to get a rookie quarterback or something like that. But you're right, it would be just another crazy offseason. I don't think that's going to happen, though.
Yeah, and the thing, I mean, Sean Payton isn't the rebuilding type, but that's just because he's only had a good team. Like, we don't know what would have happened if they sucked.
Couldn't they have tried to rebuild right after Drew Brees retired? Said, let's take a step back. Instead of going Jameis Winston, let's just go Ian Book for a year. Yeah. And then kind of tank and then give Sean a top 5 quarterback in the draft. But instead they tried. They went 9-8. They were still in a terrible cap situation. And Sean said, peace out. I'm going to leave this. It's because we're not bad enough to truly be rebuild, but we're also not close enough to really doing anything.
Yeah. And I mean, he'd had his 15-year run there where I understand wanting to take a break. And if that's the situation you're in, why not just coach somewhere else where you have a salary cap you can work with? But that's, I mean, no team is going to go 12-4 and then the next year just say, you know what? We're just tearing everything down. You know, even if you lose Drew Brees, you still see what you have. And, 9-8, game away from the playoffs, like, I don't know. Tearing things down is usually a really bad idea.
That's just like the Broncos after winning Super Bowl 50.
Yeah,
they didn't tear it down.
Yeah, exactly. Like, who the Chiefs beat this year?
The Eagles.
Eagles, so they're obviously not tearing it down. I don't know. I think tearing it down just does not happen all that often. I think people think it happens more, but that's because...
And that's why I don't think Sean would tear it down.
If you won 6 games, though, and you have Russell Wilson on that contract, you're either running it back with Russ or you're kind of just tearing it down. Like, I don't think...
They would not be running it back with
and
Russ.
That's the thing. Like, your hands are just tied at that point. You don't have a choice. And the thing is, like, you always look at the teardown as like, oh, we'll go down, we'll draft a quarterback, and we'll bounce back up and be like, okay, so did you get Patrick Mahomes or... I guess even if you just have, like, a Josh Allen or a Joe Burrow, you can still feel good about yourself and be competitive. But there's only a couple quarterbacks who are just going to go win you Super Bowls.
I mean, the Bills are, like, as depressed as they could be. They think that they need to tear it down, yet you have Josh Allen, you have so much talent still.
And what happens more often than not is you tear things down and then your team just sucks for a decade.
Right.
Like, it's really, really tough to build a good team. Like, I mean, who are the worst teams right now?
Right now, the Texans, the Cardinals.
The Texans will stay down there. The Cardinals have done literally nothing in the last, like, 20 years. Cardinals like they were able to get up to like 500 a couple years and maybe sneak in, but
I mean, I kind of think the team that you look at is the Jaguars. It took a generational quarterback, what a lot of people thought generational quarterback, and Trevor Lawrence to flip them around. But outside of 1 year where Nathaniel Hackett was the offensive coordinator, they've really just been a terrible team.
They have been terrible. And who knows?
It was like trying to tank and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't. The rebuild stuff just, I don't think it works all that well in football. Sometimes you don't have a choice.
That's why Sean Payton's not doing it.
Unless you're really stuck. The thing is, I don't think they're going to win 6 games.
That's fair.
I think they'll win more than 6 games and everything will be fine.
That's very fair.
Oh, the Jets is a good one, yeah.
So, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And if anyone's going to turn them around, it would be an Aaron Rodgers type.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what turned the Broncos around.
Russell Wilson. We did it.
Peyton Manning.
Oh, wow. Were you pulling for Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers to come to Denver before?
Russ. Russ was the number one. I thought it was not as realistic, certainly. I thought Aaron Rodgers was a lot more realistic. Yeah. But when we went through and we put our dream scenarios of who the Broncos quarterback would be, we all three, including when Mace was on the show, we all three put Russ number one. Because he was that kind of perfect. Because this was when the conversation was Kyler, Aaron Rodgers, and Russ. Ugh. And I had Rodgers 2, and I know Ryan had Kyler 2 because of just how long he could play. I just don't trust Kyler. I don't care
about that. It's about being good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But we all had Russ because we thought he was that perfect balance of having enough time left in the tank while also being elite. who knows which one of those is going to be true if either of them.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though, is like Aaron Rodgers might be closer to Russ than Peyton Manning. If you'd rather have Russ than,
Wait, say that again?
Aaron Rodgers, him going to the Jets might be more like Russ going to the Broncos than was Peyton going to the Broncos.
It could be. And I mean, you look at last year, that was very much a down year for Aaron Rodgers. Coming off back-to-back MVP seasons, his stats were just a little bit better than Russ's last year.
Did you see Jordan Love calling Bears fans his father? What was that about?
I mean, Jordan, have you started a game in your career yet?
That's terrible.
Have you beat the Bears?
No, he can't. They're his father. Happy Father's Day, guys. Like, what is he thinking doing that? Like, I want to...
Wait, he called the Bears? He called their father?
Well, because he said Happy Father's Day to Bears fans.
I think he meant it in a way of like, I'm your father. Like,
but
we are your father.
It did not come across that way. Because it wasn't, don't forget to say Happy Father's Day to us. It was Happy Father's Day.
That is really...
Which is, I know.
That is really weird. Because I saw DeMarcus Walker. He took to Twitter and was like, he did like the little writing down emoji, like, we'll remember this for when we beat you later. It's fascinating.
It's pretty great. But that's why I wish I could talk to Aaron Rodgers right now as just like a friend and just get his take.
You want to be Aaron Rodgers' friend?
I would love that at this particular moment, because I think there's a real chance he might just say like, yeah, I bet he did that. Like,
no, he'd first say, take this, eat this first, and then we'll talk in an hour.
That is probably true. But I mean, maybe Jordan Love's just dumb.
I mean,
and Aaron Rodgers would know.
That is a very risky thing to do.
And it's just like,
Mr. Orange says
his dad is a Bears fan. I think that
would make more sense.
Happy Father's Day.
Jordan Love should know that 99.9% of people are not going to understand that at all.
Well, yeah.
And be extremely confused by it. Do you think his dad is still a Bears fan? He's just like, F my son, I'm going to maintain my loyalties.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's true.
Are you doing the research on this?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
When you figure that out, I got to tell you about our friends over at Breckenridge Brewery, the Mountain Beach Sour. It is that time. Henry, I think for the first time, it finally feels like summer. Like 89 degrees today. Get yourself a Mountain Beach Sour. What's great about the Mountain Beach Sour is it is a sour beer, but it's light. It's not going to overpower. It's not going to be too sour. You can have a couple of these, and it's a perfect, refreshing beer. So if you want to get the Mountain Beach Sour, come by the DNVR Bar. And if you can't do that, go to breckbrew.com to get their beer locator. And if you can not only find out where you get Breckenridge beers, but you can find out specific beers and check out the Mountain Beach Sour. It is delicious, especially in the summer.
And also go check out our friends whom we love at FOCO. Because they've got a bunch of cool stuff, including bobbleheads of all of the champion Denver Nuggets.
We're going to need some after a bunch of ours were decapitated on set.
Oh, somebody took them away.
Probably smart.
Yeah. Wow.
Repairs.
Once a head comes off, I don't know
you
that it
just
goes
buy
back
new ones
on.
over at FOCO.
That's what you do. You go over to FOCO and go get yourself a new bobblehead. Or if you don't want a bobblehead, you can get so many different things like hats or shoes or socks or Hawaiian shirts or just like signs and stuff to put places. Whatever you want that has a Broncos logo on it, FOCO has it. So get over there and use the code DNVR to get 10% off. So go FOCO.com. You get 10% off with the code DNVR.
There we go. Okay, let's put a bow on this. Mm-hmm. Henry, what are your minimum...
real quick. Yes. Here's the quote. Happy Father's Day to all the Bears fans out there. Go Pack Go.
Yeah, see, it did not make it clear that his father is a Bears fan.
Yeah, so
if
then
that's true.
This line says, Love was at a quarterback camp in France when he recorded the message, and the Twitter user who posted it revealed that it wasn't so much a troll. Page just reloaded. That is awful. So much as a genuine message to French Bears fans. And also that Bears quarterback Justin Fields was also supposed to be at the camp but couldn't make it.
Why is he giving a genuine Happy Father's Day to Bears fans? To French Bears fans?
Happy Father's Day to all the Bears fans out there.
Is his dad also French? And now it does make sense?
The camp was in France. Jordan Love, father, Bears.
That is
That's
just
going to get the same thing.
That is just so random, though. That's like Russ being in Monaco for the Grand Prix and saying that to all the Monacoian?
Yeah.
Monacan?
Oh, I would never have had to say this.
Monacan Bears or Chiefs fans. That would be so weird.
Yeah.
It'd be something you would do. You would give a shout out to Chiefs fans, but not Russell Wilson.
That's not true. I wouldn't.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because it was in the video he took.
Maybe wearing a Bears jersey. That fan looked like it.
Wow.
And what does it say?
Yeah, he was wearing a...
Yeah, the fan was. What does a caption say?
So, yeah, there is no more. I handed him my phone asking him to make a fun video to originally wish the French Bears fans a happy Father's Day, and that is his original take, though he forgot to mention French. And obviously I, or better, he said he lit the fire.
Well, that's the last time Jordan Love ever does a fun thing for a fan after I'm sure he just got trolled by Packers fans.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Packers fans are trying to, like, have his back, but then everybody else is saying, like, that makes no sense what you just said. Like, that does not work.
And then Bears players think that you just gave him billboard material to work with all season.
Oh, and there'll be, like, a billboard or something.
Oh, yeah,
like, of him being, like, the son of the Bears or something.
Yeah, with that, especially if they beat him.
Oh, yeah.
And when was the last time the Bears beat the Packers? I mean, you probably have to go back decades. The 85 Bears, maybe?
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did.
Do you think they're probably not as on bad of a run as the Broncos are to the Chiefs, unfortunately?
I think the Broncos are like the second worst all time. It's really tough to check. I tried to checking a couple months ago.
That is brutal. Was it 15 now?
15.
15.
Yep.
Be 18.
15.
17 after this year.
Hey, playoffs.
Let's hope not. Oh, yeah, that's
Well,
true.
let's hope not.
You're right.
Yeah.
No, it could. No.
Ooh.
Do you take that? The Broncos lose. Let me know. Let us know in the comment section. Would you take this trade-off? The Broncos lose 3 times to the Chiefs this year, but it clearly means they made the playoffs.
Wow.
And you don't know when they lose. You don't know if it's wild card week. You don't know if it's
AFC Championship
game. You take that in a heartbeat. It means the Broncos just made the playoffs. And it also means they didn't make the playoffs by winning the division at 8-9. They didn't like back in. They actually had a good enough record to make it as a wild card team. Or they win the division and just somehow the Chiefs knock them off there. I take it in a heartbeat. Do you?
I think so. I think so. I mean, at this point, like if the Broncos were consistently going to playoffs, you'd be like, no, I'm not giving the Chiefs anything.
Right.
But the Chiefs are probably going to win a playoff game this year. It is what it is. Broncos might as well make it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Man, that's a little fun one there. Whoa, Jose is not taking it. What do we think? We're going to put this out on Twitter. What do we think? No shot. Beham Moon. What are we doing here?
Hating the Chiefs.
But like, oh my gosh, Jose says he'd rather miss the playoffs at 8-9 than lose 3 more times to these guys.
What about make the playoffs at 13-3 and losing the AFC Championship game?
And two of your 4 losses in the season, including the playoffs, are to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
No, 3 of your 4 losses.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be wild. And I mean, it's the Chiefs too. It's the defending Super Bowl champ. That's not like embarrassing.
No, it's only embarrassing in like the 18 in a row little brother way.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so then do you think people would rather, here's another question. Would people rather lose 3 to the Chiefs this year and make the playoffs, or lose 3 to the Raiders this year and also clearly make the playoffs?
Oh.
Because they've also got a streak against the Raiders. What's it at, 6 now? I think they've lost 6 straight times to the Raiders.
6.
Chargers only ones without a streak on the Broncos.
Which is crazy. The reason the Broncos have been so bad, or half of it, is just because they can't keep up in their own division.
Yep, big time.
Like, you throw in another 2-3 wins a year, all of a sudden the records from the past 7 years aren't so bad.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, last year you bottomed out and you had 7 or 8 wins.
And you went 1-5 in the division last year. That is disgusting.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
So what would be worse?
Because the thing is, the Raiders get into the playoffs, but if the Raiders and Broncos are in, there's a chance the Chiefs are just out.
Yeah,
which would also be nice.
The
but
Chiefs'
probably
worst
not.
record with Patrick Mahomes is 12-5.
Yep, I think I'd take the Chiefs one. The losses to the Chiefs don't hurt as bad to me anymore. Like, it's just expected. Like, I go
But
into
now,
those
like
games.
you said, you're getting historic, where it could be the longest streak ever.
Yeah. I'll see if I can figure out what that streak is.
Man, that is brutal. Okay, let's wrap this conversation up with what are the minimum expectations for this team entering this season? There's 4 options. 1, the minimum, have at least, well, don't be worse than last year.
Yep.
Then winning record, then make the playoffs, then have a playoff run. What are your minimum expectations for the team this year?
The thing is, 500 isn't really a thing anymore. Otherwise, that would have been...
So it's winning record.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though, is like, I wish it was 500 because winning record sounds like asking a lot. So maybe it is 8 and 9.
8 and 9?
You say 8 and 9, you're fine. Would I come out of this season? It depends on how it goes. And the weird thing is, I would really like for them to win a bunch of games early and then fall off late, because that would mean that, like, those games are important. You're right in it at the end.
It was interesting.
In terms of, like, momentum, you'd probably want it to go the other way. I think if they go 8 and 9 and in December, I want the last game to mean something. That's what I want.
And not for draft position.
And not for draft positioning. It doesn't have to be like at kickoff, but I want week leading up to the game to at least be able to say, here's how the Broncos can make the playoffs.
I like that.
It can even be like the crazy long shot way, but technically alive.
Yeah, and we have Moon saying finish 500 is the floor. So maybe instead of a winning record, I say 8 and 9 is kind of that second bar that you have to get to. And I'm right there. I think that's kind of the minimum expectation. B to 8 wins. We just said how easy it could be for them to get to 10 in terms of just the boost that they got this offseason. That's 2 games short of that. So I think that's the minimum expectations there. And I truly think the floor is 7 wins for this team, just because Sean Payton's never done that before. All of the upgrades, they were still a 5-win team last year. It's not like they're coming from 2 wins. So I'll go there with you. And I think that would still be a 3-game jump, Henry.
Which would be awesome.
And then if you could say they're going to have another 3-game jump next year, then you're talking about 11 wins and you're certainly in the playoffs.
Also, so by my math, I'm pretty sure the Patriots have actually... No, they're at 14. Patriots are at 14 over the Jets.
Still?
Yeah, they're still going.
Wow, you got to think that changes this year. Or am I just way too high on them?
I mean, I think both those teams 9 wins. Like, that's kind of where I'm at.
So then you would think they split.
You would think they probably
at least,
split.
right?
Except for the fact that
the Broncos
Patriots own the Jets.
That's very true. So the Broncos is the longest losing streak right now.
The current one that's alive, yes.
Man.
And I believe that the longest is 20, which is the Dolphins over the Bills.
Wow, how about that? I wonder if the Bills are going to start a little run on the Dolphins soon.
Yeah, it's possible.
They already have.
They might have.
Shall we jump into the comment section, talk to the people?
Yes.
First one coming in from the count says, from the odd box scores file, November 14th, 2010. Tell me what happened that day with the Broncos. November 14th, 2010.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, that would have been Tebow.
Would have been 2010. Would have been.
So, November 14th. I don't know which one that was. Maybe that's the Browns game?
No, yeah. I thought there was no chance here. There were 2 quarterbacks played for the Broncos. Can you name both of them? You got this. I believe in you. You got this.
So, I mean, it would have been Tebow, and it would have been... Who'd they bench for Tebow?
Oh,
was
come
that
on. You
Orton?
got this. You got... Who?
Orton?
Boom. Bingo.
Yeah.
There you go. Our guy Nick in the back helping you out, trying to help you out here. So he says, the Broncos beat Hank's Chiefs despite... Actually, he says the Chefs. Despite Matt Castle tossing 469 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Broncos beat a team where their quarterback threw for almost 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. Kyle Orton threw the bean into pay dirt 4 times as well, but on a mere 296 yards. Tim Tebow had 2 carries and 2 yards and a touchdown and was 1 for 1 through the air with a 3-yard tutty. No, Sean Moreno had 102 yards on the ground and caught 3 balls for 50 yards and a score. Also, catching touchdowns were Jabbar Gaffney, Spencer Larson, and Brandon Lloyd had 2. Also, Jason Hunter. Raise your hand if you remember that name. Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, impressive.
That was like my era.
Your era.
Because it's like play Madden all the time. So it's like, 1 through 53. I know everybody.
Impressive.
Oh, yeah.
He said he had a sack as well as a 75-yard fumble recovery touchdown for the Orange and Blue. DT returned 2 kicks in that game for 68 yards, and Prater missed a field goal, but was 7 of 7 on extra points. It's been a long time since the Broncos ate like that, hasn't it? Love the count. And this is just incredibly depressing.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of like reliving a fun game in which the Broncos beat the Chiefs, one of like the last times they did it, they had Tim Tebow and Kyle Orton, and they were able to put up like 500 yards of offense. The Broncos have had what I thought would be much better quarterback play in the past 7 years since that, and they've really gotten nowhere close.
They have an offensive line now, though. Like, that's where if all else fails and you can just run the ball and think you're going to get 5 yards, that's pretty nice. Like you have like an engine now at the bottom of everything.
But they ran for 102 yards. No, Sean did in that game, and they still threw for almost 300 yards.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I mean, I don't know what the score was in that game, but 40. There had to be 40 points put up.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
Man, if anyone can help the Broncos with that, it's Sean Payton, though. The count chimes in with another one, and he says it was only a sack. Mario Hagan had 3 sacks in that game. Love the count. Raise your hand if you remember Mario Hagan. Of course. Yep, everyone does. Everyone in their room is putting their hands up. Okay, and we have a comment on the website as well that I want to make sure we hit. It's from our guy Moon. He says, what's the minimum wins for Russ would have to stay in Denver long term?
See,
if we're talking minimum for this year, I don't think we're talking long term yet for Russ. I think we're talking about what would be the number of wins he'd have to get to be back next year.
Yep. But I mean, I think if they go out and win 14 games, he's probably here long term. You know? But I think that's kind of where the bar is for long term. He's here.
If they do 12, he's their long term guy. There's going to be no questions next year about that.
That's true.
I mean, 11. I think it's still 11. You're like, man, this is the dude. He turned around. 10, probably, but at 10, you could get a great rushing game. You could have great defense to kind of carry you to a 10-7 record.
Well, 10, he could just be bad next year.
Right. That's why I don't think 10. I think 10 would be, but it's not a guarantee. I do think 11 would be though.
11's a guarantee.
Yeah, pretty much.
I go 12 as a guarantee. 11 would be a big step, but then just to be back next year. 7,
8. I think it's
8.
I think it's 8. Nick's saying 9. Man, 7's only a 2-game bump, and like I said, that's Sean Payton's floor, man.
Yeah.
If you're living in Sean Payton's basement, there's no guarantees there. But I think 8. Then I think you convince yourself, like, man, we just rather pay him in dead money or have a chance to have him bounce back again. I think you just keep him around for one more year then.
Yeah, because they could basically save. Oof. So the cap hit goes up by $50 million if they cut him before next year.
Oof. Also, next year, next March, his 2024 becomes guaranteed.
Yeah.
So really, you're not just deciding for next year, you're deciding for the next 2 years, which might make the bar higher.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. 2025 salary. So
it's 2025. You're right. 2025 salary kicks in next year, right?
So that's 2024. Yeah. So you do have to decide before then.
Before 2024 season, actually in like March of next year,
you
have to decide on the 2025 salary.
Yeah, because otherwise, like if you didn't have to do that, you would save $6 million to move on from Russ before the 2025 season. But if you've made it at that point, there's another $37 million in guarantees that you have to add on to that. So you're actually down 30. Oh,
maybe it is 9 wins then.
It might be
because you're talking about a little bit more of a long term.
Yeah,
Henry, if I gave you right now, Broncos go 9-8 this year, no playoffs, do you take it?
Oh,
first winning record since 2016 when the Broncos had the no-fly zone. Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware.
I'd say no.
No.
I'd say no. It's probably the bad decision.
I think it is the bad decision.
If I was like the GM or something, I'd probably say yes.
Oh, George Payton's taking that right away because he's back next year.
Because for me, though, roll the dice, see if you get lucky, and have something to really build around.
So a season without playoffs isn't worth it to you?
No.
Isn't worth it to just take and run with?
They're just so stuck at that point. Like if that team gets 9-8, this was the big spending year. Like you can do a couple things to free up some money, but like, oh, you move on from Cortland Sutton, you move on from Randy Gregory. You'd probably use all that money to just go get an edge rusher who, I don't know, is like Bradley Chubb, like money-wise, and it's not like that's a huge effort. Like
$25 million.
Exactly. So the changes that you're making to that team, 9-8, I think this era might be going nowhere.
Man, so Jose's kind of along your side. He's saying 9-8 would be the worst result possible. I typically agree, except in this scenario. I think if you're stuck at 8-9, 9-8, that's the worst place to be because you're too far from getting a game-changing player at the top of the draft, and you're also not making playoffs consistently. But this year it would be different because you would be gaining so much momentum from where you went from last year.
It's true.
And then you would be heading in the right direction. So I think for 1 year, going 9-8 is actually okay.
Yeah, maybe they do need to take a step, and then they can go on from there.
I mean, you can't get to 12 wins if you don't. They're probably not going to go from 5 wins to 12 wins. There's probably a step in the middle.
I think that if they wind up 9-8, we'll sit here next year, and it'll kind of be the opposite of the conversation we had before, where it's like, well, they just do this, they just did that, they just did that, and look, that's how you get from like 5 to whatever. I think if they go 9-8, we sit here and say, well, the running game worked pretty well. You're probably not doing too much to improve that. The passing game probably worked pretty well. Probably maybe another year in the system, like Jerry Jeudy takes another step. Maybe Marvin Mims takes a step, so maybe you can upgrade a little bit. The defense probably is like, it would feel like you've kind of maxed out a little bit.
But no, because you just got 4 wins. I think then we'd be saying now you can add another 3 more on just by being around the system for another year. Sean Payton's first year. What can you do that second year?
We would say that.
I think if they get stalled in
I
this
don't
for a
believe
couple
it.
of years.
Yeah. Right now, if we were to say you go 9-8 and it's like, well, year 2 in the system, there's another 2 or 3 win improvement. Right now, I say no. I don't think that's how that works. But when the time came, I would probably be like, well, yeah, that's how you do it. Got to go do it. Like,
right. The Sean Payton boost would be real then. People would be believing in him big time.
Yeah.
If he got this. And also, first winning record since 2016. That's what that would be.
Yeah.
Did we have a winning record on this pod today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was solid.
What was 9-8?
9-8.
We were 9-8 today.
9-8.
Maybe we can go. Are we building off momentum?
We'll
for
see.
Tomorrow?
We'll test the theory.
We'll test the theory on tomorrow's DNVR Broncos podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hit us with a thumbs up on YouTube. Hit us with a 5-star review if you're listening on the podcast side. Go to DNVR_Broncos on Twitter, where we're going to be putting a couple of fun polls out there that we talked about today. Really want your insight. So thank you so much for tuning in on an off-season pod. We'll see you tomorrow.